Dear friends, good evening. We are part of the Search Sullivan Forum, the Immune System of World Economy, and our workshop, Protect Yourself. Do you like the title of our workshop? I'm a moderator of the workshop. We're going to have a talk show format. We have online forecast. Tatiana Mineva, Commissioner of Entrepreneurs' Right Protection in Moscow, and I'm going to moderate together with our participants and the Deputy of Moscow State Duma. So, the lawyer of Head Reception to the Commissioner of Entrepreneurs' Right Protection in Moscow, Evgeny Korchaga. Lawyer and public commissioner interaction with law enforcement control authorities. The entrepreneur and expert in public transport, the head receptionist of the commissioner of head receptionist of the Commission of Entrepreneurs' Rights Protection in Moscow, Artur Teresan. The PPP specialist, Всеволод Sazonov, lawyer and head receptionist of the Commission of Entrepreneurs' Rights Protection in Moscow. Very bright entrepreneur and successful entrepreneur in 20 different projects. Our commissioner on public affairs, the entrepreneur Mr. Porochkin. And the official deputy of Moscow State Duma, the head of Commission for Innovation and Entrepreneurial Development in ICT, Valery Golovchenko. Dear entrepreneurs, we've been trying to lobby your initiatives, Valery, particularly together with you. I give the ball to your side. They all have their own cases of work during the pandemic time, and we'll try to find out whether they managed to protect themselves. Being professional lawyers and successful entrepreneurs. Artur, let's start with you. You've been the leading specialist now rating for the Commissioner for Entrepreneurs. Have you managed to protect your business? Talking about the real cases, it was very difficult to get the support from the state, which was voiced the part of the state. Several companies of ours got the loans at the reduced rate. It's not about the document, actually. To be honest, it's not about the documents. It's always about the person. So we prepared documents on time. We sent them to the banks within this framework of support from the state in order to get the low rate loan. As a rule, the banks take a pause. It's not clear why. For 30 days, you should wait for the feedback. We are processing your application, and it is a time when the business goes down. It was not the measure which saved us, though it was announced and it should have been used. We had about 120 applications, starting from sole proprietorships to LLCs, which couldn't get the support in the form of the low rate loan. We've gone through the way on our own. We collected very useful material. We sent out the information to the receptionist offices who were supposed to know what was going on the ground. It's one thing to announce, it's another thing to go through the path. We applied to 3 banks, twice to one bank, but we managed to get this loan with the help of our friends. The tools were announced, but they were very raw material, very raw tools. And due to a human factor, it was a very serious problem. If we manage to minimize this human factor, to automate the whole process, the application which should be processed and to give feedback within 3 days, unfortunately, it is not the case. We're going to give the major idea. So we are online for a lot of people. Do you recommend this title, Protect Yourself? Of course, you have to fight. You know, no, some people take no as an answer, some don't. Arthur, thank you very much. Very vivid case of yours. We should follow your suit and your recommendation. Evgeny Korchaga, the lawyer, the attorney. So during the pandemic times, what were the requests? Everyone wants to go bankrupt. These issues were exaggerated in front of the lawyers and attorneys community. These are the problems connected with the procedure to go bankrupt, and during the pandemic times there were more checks than even before, and they didn't even think if you just bury the business, there will be nothing to check. They started to check in terms of masks, gloves. After opening the restaurant, every 2 hours, not just to replace gloves and masks, but to retain them in order for those who check us, for the regulator to see how many times they were checked. During the pandemic times, together with the commissioner, we managed to realize a number of projects, quite serious ones, which were supposed to be fulfilled before the pandemic times. We know that during the pandemic time it was very difficult to get to those who stay in law enforcement units, in detained units, so it was very difficult for lawyers to get to them. Thanks to our joint work and initiative, the commissioner and envoy of the lawyers and attorneys, we realized the first projects to have online communication between the lawyers and their clients. And they installed a special equipment on the ground, so without leaving your own office, through this online conference, I can get to reach, and I can reach any client of mine. So I, can have such sessions with several of them. It would be impossible if I go then to see them directly on the ground. I had a case when I went to the arrested client of mine at 6 a.m. and I wanted to ask the timing to see my client, and they asked me whether it was possible to do it today or the day after, tomorrow. And they said that it was possible to have this booking for your communication with your client 2 or 3 days in advance. Thanks to this pandemic situation, it is online version which is possible right now. These amendments to the law, thanks to these pandemic situations, we managed to fine-tune this online communication between the lawyers and the clients. So the initiative was prepared manually, and I'd like to thank, as without this joint effort it would have been impossible. A round of applause to Eugene. Let's switch to our key lawyer, Всеволод Sazonov. Worked lawyer, had a receptionist to the Commissioner of Entrepreneurs' Rights Protection in Moscow, and as far as I know, you specialize in IT. Can you give a vivid example or from your personal practice? We expected that during the pandemic times they would change the approach to the law enforcement. If we look at different countries, the courts, considering the coronavirus situations, deny the law enforcement agency to put them in special detained units. those crimes which are not connected with the threat to life and of other people. Unfortunately, in Russia, this was not the case, and even though the entrepreneurs and the offenses were not a threat to others, so during the pandemic time, they were detained in all districts of Moscow, not only in our district. We do understand that the situation hasn't been resolved yet, and whether the vaccine is going to be in place or whether the virus is going to mutate. But I do believe that the problem should be tackled and the trend should be changed.
In many cases, we may be confined with other measures like the bail or home arrest. That is the practice in other countries, yes, indeed, and it meets the common sense principles and adequacy principles. With respect to the issue, we had lots of workshops and webinars with hundreds of entrepreneurs from across the city and beyond. These are very typical issues, but the outstanding issues, the one about the rent payments, because the enterprises were closed down but had to pay their payment rent, and they couldn't find a trade-off with their premises owners. So what we're now seeing is the probably backlog of deferred bankruptcies. And early next year, and late this year, we'll see scores of thousands of bankruptcies, and the physical entities, individuals now will have to claim bankruptcy extrajudicially if it's below 500,000 rubles, but if the individual entrepreneurs will go to courts to claim and file for bankruptcy as those individual entrepreneurs received almost no support during the pandemic, and we interact with foreign business outside the Russian Federation. We can compare and contrast. What countries can you name? The United States, for example, although they are having an acute wave of the crisis yet, and they may have resurgences in different regions, but anyway, the simplicity and the facilitation of obtaining help and support is stunning, unlike in this country. So despite all their problems, they find a way out. Vsevolod, you being a well-known lawyer in Russia and beyond, you win the cases of Russian entrepreneurs in foreign jurisdictions and foreign courts. By the way, Vsevolod speaks 15 languages. So can you tell us whether Russian entrepreneurs will leave this country, will flee the country? What do you think? Well, most importantly, we have the issue of force majeure, and many entrepreneurs with international contracts are faced with these situations when we cannot perform contracts are quite acute, and the Chamber of Trade and Commerce would not support entrepreneurs, would not issue force majeure statements, and that means that the entrepreneurs will lose their cases and lose hearings, and will find themselves in very dire straits in the pre-bankruptcy state. They are already fleeing and leaving. Whether that will accelerate, I'm not sure. I cannot speak on behalf of the small and medium enterprises that are pegged to this country, but major businessmen have already either moved or have dual or triple citizenship. But the bulk of the people that potentially may become entrepreneurs are loath to do so. So many of them, many of active, proactive people don't want to do business. This is the main issue. Thank you, Vsevolod. And the Commissioner's report appeared not long ago. It was published not long ago, and we presented it to Mayor Sobyanin. It is the merit of the Chamber of the experts and the public commissioners. The next report will have a section on measures to stop them from leaving, the entrepreneurs from leaving, how to improve the business climate. So you will probably be in charge of that section, being the international expert. Dear friends, you are listening to and you are streaming our workshop. Here we have the public commissioners' chamber. Team is the capital and the asset of any team, of any enterprise. You should definitely try to keep them on board, but you know, there are lots of claims and lawsuits when you make people redundant and not in the legal way. We have the Dmitry Korotchkin, High Public Commissioner, dealing labor relations, doing labor relations. So you know that for sure. You were the presenter and moderated webinars each day. So what was the most salient case during the pandemic? I remember in early April and late March we had lots of webinars, you and I. We hosted them, and we had lots of questions of how to transfer personnel and employees. The funniest, not the most salient, but the funniest case was when an acquaintance of mine called and asked, you know, in his company he had a collusion of employees. They wouldn't work and say those are non-working days, but we have holidays and public holidays and days off. But you know, this exact term, this exact coinage is not on the code, on the labor code, and half of his employees, being consultants, refused to work remotely, and he asked how to do that, whether I should fire them, and I couldn't collect their signatures. They wouldn't speak to me. They wouldn't get in touch with me. And similar cases happened across the country. This is so because the terms and definitions of the decrees, governmental decrees, are not part of the laws, of the legislation. But you know, we had some upside also in terms of labor relations and labor protection. 1 year ago, our platform of the Public Commission held one of the first events on trade, on labor relations, and there was a question about the introduction of the digital signature, to use it in document flow and for labor protection sake. Back then they said, okay, just forget about this, you'll forge that digital signature to deceive grassroots rank-and-file people. Okay, I told them, you cannot fool Face ID or Touch ID systems. But I'm a member of the working group, I'm on board of the working group of the regulatory guillotine of the government, and late last year the digital signature was not on the agenda in the new in the new labor code. But as soon as the pandemic broke out, it was swiftly put on the table, and now the draft law, the draft chapter contains the digital signature provisions. So every cloud has a silver lining, and it is digitalization that may help us. And in the past, it was shrugged off, and currently the COVID has become the driver of moving towards the digital technology and going digital. Okay, our section is called Protect Yourself Have you been able to protect yourself? Yes, we have. In some cases we received support, in others we failed, although we often represent small enterprises, small businesses. So the response you received was just wait for 30 days. No, they told us you are not on the roster of the hardest hit enterprises, so keep working. But the main important point is that we have been able to protect people, the teams of the enterprises, and Russian supervision agency and Russian regulator has absolutely awkward requirements, like you should cut a client's hair, but the client should be wearing a mask. This is ridiculous. You cannot shave or do a haircut to a person if that person is wearing a mask. And so the digital sometimes makes our work harder, because someone acted as a whistleblower, sending an image to the regulator of a person without a mask being shaved. So your advice is, what is your advice to tens of thousands of entrepreneurs? I believe that saving the drowning people is their own business. In small business, will we speak of our regulator? Yes, then protect yourself. Alexander Khorudji. Valery Golovchenko is the State Duma representative. How do you think? What is your opinion, Valery? Whether the officials are now more receptive to business needs? I think the achievements reached is that testify to the fact that we were heard. Sometimes we failed, sometimes we won out. I want to open a secret that we rang each other up, myself and Alexander Grot, in Poro-Rossi before each of the meetings of the board, and we tried to agree where to strike, what to put on the protocol, in the text of the protocol. We're now being watched and recorded, by the by. So Vsevolod, at the end of the day, touched upon a very interesting topic, and myself being a member of Parliament, I find it most painful, the rent payments. So protection probably implies the state. But in this case, you have entrepreneurs on both sides of the conflict. I may receive 2 requests. The rent owner wants some relaxation of the emergency terms, while the rent payer wants a delay. How they should come to terms with each other. I think the Moscow State Duma knows that. You may well remember that the city stripped of the rent, the municipal property. They suspended, they pardoned the property tax for the 2nd and 3rd quarter. Everybody is in uproar, you know. But just 1 second to mention one thing that is still on the table. We are yet to achieve that. If we have the preferential lending program, some receive 30 days, others would receive compensation of 8% of the rate, but the leasing payments were not included, were not added to the text. By the way, all the transport is leased, by the way, all the vehicles. Yeah, and in this case you will be left to your own devices. Thank you. We'll have to struggle, keep struggling. We have an interactive session now with cases, case studies from the audience. Please ask questions and introduce yourselves before you speak. Hello, Alexander Horuji. What I wanted to bring up, just when I saw the title, Protect Yourself, self-protection is good, but later I figured that it meant be your own last resort. But the question is, against whom we're trying to protect ourselves. For decades we tried to counter the excesses of the state and raiders. Back in the 1990s, why am I wearing this red jacket, you remember? We tried to protect ourselves from the racketeers, and we tried to be fit and steady, but triathlon will not help you now. Now the word and the law will help you, and the protection will be effective only in case there are decent courts around. So we may issue lots of laws and decrees, but we should fix our judicial practices. This is the salient case. Andrei Pavlov, a person in this case, he is wearing his own shoes, own manufactured shoes. So this person, paying all the taxes, was under investigation, and he persevered. He managed to defend himself, but not everybody is ready to go to the end and defend themselves and show those who are attacking you that they may find themselves in trouble. Until they walk away with impunity, they are let off with impunity. We will have similar dire things happening, and each of the successful case studies must be cherished and brought to the fore, and we should make people aware. And I never wore a rubber suit, technical suit at 35 degrees centigrade when you wait for an hour indoors. You know, I figured that it is real hard. So, Andrei, do you have anything to add? Well, as a matter of fact, in this country I have only 5. In this sector of the economy we have only 10 companies with the payroll on top of 5,000 employees. Well, the light industry, footwear and clothes manufacturing suffered hard, and in public catering it was easier, but for me, I was in urgent need of money. I paid an excess of 400 million of taxes, and I expected a refund in the second quarter. but the cameral inspection lasted 3 months, and after we passed all those inspections, well, with hindsight, the tax authority, using Conartist, submitted additional extra information that ruined our statement, and we have been able to spot this Conartist, an accountant that was engaged in the fraudulent action. And you know, how many employees have you got? I used to have 5,000, now I have 4,000 employees. The fewer people I have on board, you know, the easier. If I have 3,000 people on board, it will be still easier for me to weather the storm. Then comes the topic of systemic companies. We used to be the only major company in fashion retail in the Russian Federation that we registered in this jurisdiction. All other competitors were in tax havens, and we were included into that list. But in 2 months we were deleted from that, and we kind of received a preferential loan and drew that down with a preferential rate. But you know, a week afterwards, we were informed that we were not on that list of systemic companies, and we're now waiting to be put back on that list, because everybody, all the public authorities are in favor of us. The regional government and the industry ministry, but someone deleted us from that list. That was a slight trick. They wanted us to fall down, and they wanted us to collapse. And the day before yesterday, we won the case against the tax authority. In my second case. In the first case, I was able to have the refund of 84 million rubles, and now I have been able to win back 900 million rubles. Let's greet the winner with a round of applause. It is the 4 years of tax inspection. I'll write a thick book on that. Evgeny is part of the systemic problem. So unless we decide that issue, make a decision on that, we should sort it out somehow. But all the entrepreneurs are saying, why are they doing so? We just want to give it all up altogether. Many of the proactive people are not poor, and they want they will be able to meet body and soul, make body and soul meet and live decently. Their livelihoods are okay. But they employ lots of people. Like, if that person makes 2,000 people redundant, who will feed those people? Now, we are seeing lots of problems. I'm especially a small enterprise. What should they do? Should they surrender altogether? Should they give it up? Should they abandon doing business? Should they admit guilt? That will have dire consequences and after effects. If you have anything to add, please do. Otherwise, we'll move to Madam Gagarina. I'll tell you about one more case. Being an ombudsman for ties with business community, I must say that during the pandemic, we have been able to bring the beauty sector to the fore and bring it under the spotlight, because in the first package of measures, the beauty salons were not put on that list, on the hardest hit companies list, and we had a got together and we managed to add the beauty segment on the list, put them on the list. Beauty matters for men also and for women, and we have beauty representatives. With respect to my main core business activity, I am part of the Marauders, as we were called during the pandemic. And in all the business chat, I saw that we are the pillagers, the killers of business, but I rent premises out to companies in the capacity of an individual entrepreneur, so I obtained no benefits, but still I provided concessions and discounts to all the lessees. Despite that fact, some of them failed to survive and went bust, but in June I received a letter as of 27th of May from the Moscow State Authority, where it was said that I should now conclude a land plot lease contract with the state and pay a huge amount as a lump sum. But you know, this land plot comprises very many premises, and part of the owners turned to consultants, and we were told by them the cadastre value is elevated at least by 30%. We can sort it out, and you should always, we also will be able to proceed with the land plot demarcation. We will also do that, but the check was high, as a matter of fact, and now we are waiting, all of us, to be forced to conclude that land plot leasing agreement, and probably the lawyers will now prompt us a way out of that. And I hope that we still will have to face the bailiffs and all other nasty things, but I have a grudge against Moscow and the government of Moscow, because probably many real estate owners receive these letters, and from the perspective of defending business, protecting business, we should simplify that. We cannot provide discounts to lessees, and we can at the same time pay the property tax and the land tax and pay it retroactively. Thank you, Svetlana. Often it is a real issue. What about experts? Well, I think that for businessmen, what matters is that the rules of the game are transparent and simple, as the government should spell them out, but now the government may reverse the provisions of legislation, like Article 51. There was additional accrual of the profit tax, and the entrepreneurs were stunned and astonished by that. It was introduced retrospectively, and the tax authority replied, what we want is to perform a consolidated budget. And we saw lots of lots of retrospective enforcement and application of laws, but you know, they're almost fraught with additional payments, quite high ones, all of a sudden. And there was a number of leaseholders that, as physical persons, owned some of the provisions and lent them as individual entrepreneurs. If this is a systemic issue, definitely it should be looked into, and we should organize ground tables. They are not outlanders.
They have some causality why they did that. We need to understand the reasoning. You need to protect your rights. You need to protect yourself. That is the title of our roundtable. Let's protect ourselves. I do understand that I'm not the only one who is crazy about that. My colleagues of mine follow in the same suit. From the perspective of the state, the owner of property, legal entity and individuals are two different entities at all. We need to think together. For example, the LLC has a business center, gives more money to support hospitals, schools, and so forth. We need to think about that. This is a very interesting issue. You know, we are going to have a round table on that issue. Yeah, we need to discuss systematically all the issues which emerged during the coronavirus lockdown. Artur, this is the case. You know, I wouldn't believe her if I hadn't had my own experience. We received that letter of happiness during the time when we required support most of all. So that was a turbulent time. Everyone just urged us to follow the contracts we had. To be honest, if you exclude the state from this chain, you know, we saw the worst expression of... We saw the humanity inside. So they understood that they felt problems. And the same situation was for us. That was the case. That's why we accepted some delays in payments under the contracts. As for the state, as for the tax authorities to pay for the ledger tax, we received no support at all. But it was voiced by the president, it was voiced by all the authorities that the taxes should have been revised, that the payments should have been revised. But it didn't happen at that period of time. And we pay VAT on many things, and then you have to pay all the taxes of the previous 2 years revised upwards. You know, this is absolutely impossible. Now you can see these revised taxes amounted to thousands of rubles, and then you need to come to terms with those tenants you have. You know, we provided the discounts for the rental payments from 50 to 80% per month for them to survive. You know, we see the cases, positive cases between the tenants and landlords. We have a center with more than 100 applications. When the pandemic lockdown helped people to believe in this institute, in this tool, so we have professional mediators in this respect. Who is the Special Commissioner protecting the rights of the entrepreneurs? And the entrepreneur understands that sometimes you don't need to go to the trial, you have some pre-trial opportunities. He's consultant on the economic recoveries. Are there many applications for bankruptcy? Yeah, this is our profile. I'm the vice president of Association of Lawyers in Bankrupt Procedures. Before saying a couple of words about how we managed to survive, I'm going to elaborate on the issues touched upon by the colleagues. As for the cost of property in the state ledger, the property tax should be cancelled till the end of the year, and that would help to resolve the whole situations. As for the issues on inaccessibility of accessibility to the capital and those entrepreneurs which we saw in the pre-trial detention facility. We can give an example. What if Steve Jobs had been detained for a civil code violation? Then we wouldn't have Apple company. Of course, you can give penalties to entrepreneurs, but they shouldn't be detained in pre-trial detention facilities. Can you give the most vivid case? As for the mediation, there is a center of mediation at the Convention to protect the entrepreneurs' rights. Our lawyers, together with our colleagues, went to a particular spot on Fruzinskaya Street when 22 entrepreneurs couldn't come to terms, and they have managed to mediate the situation, and the resolution was reached, actually. And they just gave some arguments, and the issue was resolved within 1 hour, even though they had had experience of 3 months of this issue before. There are a lot of applications, and there are a lot of conflicts between the tenants and the landlords. As for the assistance to ourselves, we managed to understand that many employees could work remotely. That's why we managed to reduce our office costs. So those owners of commercial real estate really suffered thanks to your innovations, actually. The shopping malls, the representative of shopping malls. Experts do not hesitate to comment on that. Dmitry, the Russian Association of Shopping Malls, very active at assisting us. We are somewhere in the middle of all these cases voiced. This is the confrontation between the tenant and the landlord, which has been voiced already. And we need to discuss that. As for the shopping malls, we didn't have time to get together and to discuss all these issues. As for the biggest part of the business community and the owners who actually participated in that, and to actually involve our colleagues in the discussion, we believe that it might be positive. This very provocative title, Protect Yourself, is absolutely the real case. That's why we're trying to discuss how to change the situation. And our tax authorities is just a separate agency, and everybody feels this problem, starting from overestimation and overassessment for the previous period. And this is the money, not the money to the budget, actually. We need to have a round table. We're going to elaborate on that. And you had the challenge on a daily basis, but we were not just included in the list of the companies too big to fall, so they were not those who suffered, and they found themselves somewhere in the middle. So they were supposed to provide discounts, so we were somewhere in the middle. When we had actually the decrease in revenue. But this is still the case. And there is another issue which should be discussed, and Mr. Titov has voiced it, taxes for future periods, accrued taxes. It will support the industry, and it would allow us to reduce jobs. Thank you for your attention. Together with the shopping malls, we have roundtables. We're trying to protect, and thanks to you, it is possible. What cases do you have? Ramon Palacios Fernandez, the Commissioner for Light Industry and the Suit Workshop Company. I'm going to tell you how we survived the pandemic lockdown. There were a lot of cases, but one major one is connected with the special number of our activity, and the activity was not proved as that suffered from the pandemic situation. In our creative community, we had a discussion, and I have a huge amount of representatives. And you know, all of them are quite of opposition side. It's very bad to start business, otherwise you go into some debt trap. And we just signed letters, and we were supposed to be added to those industries suffered from the pandemic lockdown, but we're not on the list. There were a lot of services where you can put your tax identification number. You can see the number of measures provided. If I put my special tax identification number, I can see that we were not supposed to get any support measures. So the fashion industry lost about 96% of the earnings. As for my company, we won about 53 contests to say that the company from Russia can be very famous and prominent abroad. But as of today, we're trying to somehow start our business again, relaunch our business, due to these real situations without any measures in Russia. So what about industries which suffered but which are not on the list? As far as I understand, this is the case. I'm shocked. I'm shocked about the situation. We have 65 cases like that. So my question. So what measures do you expect? What measures would you expect? Of course, the quarter for cancellation of taxes is over. We'll be discussing low-rate funding. We have dentists, clinics representatives for some time. It was possible, but it is not the case anymore. You know, not to go into details, we had an initiative. Unfortunately, it was not supported. I might be interested in your opinion. We had a proposition that the state, let's not segregate into Moscow and state support, should guarantee the creditor at the amount of the taxes paid for the previous year. So we do understand that if the company, for example, had 30 people and paid income taxes amounting to 3 to 4 million, so this is not a fraud. This is a company, so it won't close within the year. So the state should have a guarantee for these 2 or 3 million. But every entrepreneur should understand that there is a shoulder supporting this entrepreneur. It isn't a burden, but a guarantee institution. You cannot imagine what sum it is. We need to increase our limits and so forth. Would the banks agree to do that? The bank believes that the state is the best guarantee. I do believe that if we ask this question, if you have managed to get roll rate loan, do we have those who have managed to do that over the crisis time? Moscow. We're talking about Moscow. Zero loans. Just one loan. We need to pay. We need to go to the Department of Innovation and Support of Entrepreneurs. You know, there are some spots to fine-tune. I'd like to add up to that. The representative of fashion industry don't have huge volumes. Some of them are quite reluctant to demonstrate their real costs on taxes. Someone is trying to hide taxes. But the representatives of this industry are still interesting for the state, because they are moving within the SMEs from micro businesses to mid-sized businesses and then to large companies. If they don't pay huge taxes, when we don't comply with some requirements, it doesn't matter that we're not going to pay taxes at all. People are just afraid to start business because of that. They do understand that they are not going to see support, and then it's going to be financial trap. You know, when after a year of their business, they will close their businesses. I'm very pleased to discuss all these issues. You're just trying to break the ice under which we can see a lot of problems. One case, I have a call from a friend of mine, and he knows that I'm a deputy. It was the representative of the authority, and just accusations, a lot of accusations from him. No, we're going to do everything. I don't have enough money for the salary, and you're definitely on the list of those industries suffered. Just show the number of employees which just show them your employees. They are my subcontractors, or my employees are subcontractors. We should. You know, sometimes we try to find loopholes, and then those loopholes become problems. We do not allow us to get the state support. No, as a former entrepreneur, I believe that every ruble which not economized is in ruble earned. Mic to the speaker, please. The interpretation is impossible. You should use the mic. We need to come to terms. Valery, I'd like to propose the following. Let's look into the support system. We discussed with Nina Litvinova a lot of micro businesses or small businesses were not eligible for the support as they had different types of employees, they had subcontractors. But there's a huge amount of people creating jobs. We can use these situations and offer such businesses different forms of support on the condition that they turn them from the shadow economy into the white economy. And there was a special foundation for SME support with funding. And one of the criteria which should exist is the socio-economic requirements completion, when you need to have to create a particular number of jobs and to pay a minimum taxes for them. Therefore, it would be possible to support the entrepreneurs and to take them out of the gray zone, shadow economy, so-called. I'd like to remind that the whole community of entrepreneurs, together with the authorities in Moscow State, Moscow Duma, are working on the proposal application, and in Moscow Duma, and everything which you have mentioned is going to be included. Next week, together with Sberbank, we're going to have a think tank on the new tools of the fiscal support. So please prepare the list of those prepositions.
Буквально пару слов сказать. Веселый, я такой веселый, вы не знаете, как.
You know, actually, I'm cheerful today.
Что хотелось бы сказать? Вот на самом деле ужасает ситуация, когда, вот слушай, Андрей, он говорит, мы создали кейс в налоговой службы, некое там количество денег.
The case against the tax authorities, we got used to the situation when it is impossible to win against the tax authorities. I'm listening to Ramon that we were not included, but in a different country, the entrepreneur would go to court, and then the court would realize the situation is wrong, and the entrepreneurs would get the protection. All the measures, thanks to you, Tatiana, thanks to a number of deputies in Moscow Duma, are connected only with part of public authorities. Another part the court authorities live in a different world. We know that the court system was paralyzed due to pandemic lockdown. We do not analyze the reasons, deep reasons why there was a mechanism which doesn't allow to win these cases in Moscow against tax authorities. Why over the last 10 years such a victory is kind of a nonsense when you just release them of duty. Why on very urgent cases, and it is very urgent case, when tomorrow the entrepreneur can lose his business, why they haven't created the mechanism which would allow him to get this court verdict within a short period of time? Whatever we do, within any layers of the authorities. There are no ideal solutions. When we are said that there is a goal not to let money go to the businesses. So the tax authority consists of those people who get the salary and income, and they don't care which problems the entrepreneurs have, and they will do that. But without the analysis, without shaping some kind of set of recommendations, because the judge is afraid to make a verdict against the authorities, against Moscow. He's afraid to make these verdict. Unless we do that, it's going to be just in vain. Everything is going to be in vain. And if we changed in our mindset, we'll all be cheerful. Yeah, during the pandemic lockdown, we have cases and we won those cases. And it is not okay when you win against the officials. Igor Lavrikov in the hospital business received a lot of letters that there would be some cuts in utilities. First of all, I would like to talk to Valery, that a friend of yours transferred people and they became entrepreneurs. Try to remember when the pandemic situation happened. Did we have any support in March? No support at all, even no voice of that. In 3 months, this happened in order to stay alive, to stay afloat. Many people decided to take this step in March in order to somehow to stay alive. In 3 months, the first support was provided. This is the first question. We need to look at the situation, not because there is a violation in place on the side of entrepreneurs. This protect yourself is we were doing that during 3 months without any support, not from Duma, from federal authorities, not from anyone. And you ask the question, who could get the low-rate subsidized loan? Not subsidized loan, this is the right name for that. Starting October, are going to pay for 4% rate on this loan. Second point, we have 2% of rate for the presidential loan, and when you go to get the low rate loan to entrepreneurs, and the bank shows that you have a lot of loans, and can you tell me which are the commercial loans you want? And this is a very, very sophisticated red tape due to these 2 subsidized loans from the state. And this is another point. My colleague was right to say October, at the end of October, we have to pay taxes, land taxes, and property taxes for the first quarter. In October, we need to pay loans at these 4% rate. In October, we start to pay VAT. October. Those 3 types of payments. So I'm very specific. Create a round table. The Department of Property, Department of Economy, Department of Entrepreneurship, and Moscow Duma, and with Tatiana Mineyeva, and without looking into these issues, it will be impossible to solve. In Moscow government, they don't understand what the situation is going to be like. It's going not to be only medical second wave of coronavirus, it's going to be second wave of economic coronavirus. I would urge the businesses to sign contracts of legal assistance with lawyers, because you have to look at different rates. We cannot see everything happening. There's a lot of information going down to us. Valeria, are we going to have a round table? Yeah, just propose the agenda. Propose the agenda and we will invite you. Dear friend, Boris Yuryevich, very, very happy to welcome you, to welcome Mr. Titov. Entrepreneurs say that they are going to leave the country. Can you imagine that? Because the business is under huge pressure. Mr. Titov, I have a lot of applications. So what was the most vivid case in the country? You know, it was by accident, because the name is Protect Yourself. The title, what should we do? Everyone started to talk about the businesses. Of course, no one is going to transfer the burden on the business, and no one can trust any institute. Everyone should be ready to have some kind of basic fundamental knowledge. As Tatiana in our Moscow office are tackling those manuals to give the light, to enlight all the interested points to. It doesn't mean that you have to protect only yourself. The commissioners and ombudsmen are very close and they are ready to help, but you need to be ready on your own as well. Answering your question. We have a lot of tasks right now. Talking about the cases, I cannot even describe it as vivid cases. This is just the miserable stories. I'm always upset when I look at these cases, but this is Zotov's case. Of course, the mass media put it in a different light, that those people coming from abroad, actually, we have a lot of people in Russia, we have people detained, and we have more success, but when a person comes from abroad, it attracts more attention. And Zotov was a manager, he's not even an owner of the business, it was a big company. There was a change in the equity, and new shareholders decided to transfer the failed situation responsibility to the manager. When he left the country, there was no criminal offense which emerged. He wanted to get back to Russia. He applied to us. And we prepared a special number of footsteps. Let him come back, but do not detain him, do not arrest him. Nobody is going to indulge him, and nobody is going to say that he's absolutely not to blame. But do not arrest him just at the border. Yeah, we have agreed on that. We agreed on that, and we managed to agree that there was a Moscow court hearing, and the prosecution was not allowed to detain Mr. Zotov. And he had to just go back. And he informed the prosecutor that he was going to leave Latvia and go to Russia. And our commissioner was ready to meet him at the airport. And there was a prosecutor, and he was arrested. he was shocked. It was shock for all of us. So transport prosecutors, the prosecutors of at the Ministry of Interior. It was the case, but there was the same hearing of the court with a different judge, and he was detained. It was not for a long period of time, because it ended up in our favor. I informed the president of Russia what had happened, because he ordered, and Krasnov was involved. And then I had a talk with them, with the Interior Minister, with the head of them, a very progressive thinking person. So we managed to change the jurisdiction. So it was not the authority, but those were some people behind the scene who could change the situation in their favor. It's a kind of corruption deal, as they just had to, there was a proposal to pay off. Now these people are arrested. He is not arrested. Doesn't matter that he is absolutely under no threat. There is still persecution going on. Another case from the London list. It's not actually a London list. Actually, this is a list of people from different cities. Kakovkin, Mr. Kakovkin, we were absolutely sure he was the first person to go to Russia following this procedure. 10 million rubles case. He entrepreneur from Rostov. They sue against the big agro business. He came back. The investigation was relaunched. 3 years, and as a result, there was an accusation. It was a court hearing. We were absolutely sure that they wouldn't even have any conviction. And then, so he had these 3 years of arrest, and there were no grounds based on the case. And we started to look into the matter, who influenced whom and when. And the government is saying to attract foreign investment. But Mr. Pupkin is not the government who has his own interest. This is our, the failed moment that you are still free, this is a problem. Talking about Kakovkin, this is not a success story right now. He was accused, then during the appeal we managed to have the conviction, but today they have already started the hearing, the court hearing again. There is a fight. There is a fight, a real fight. Protect yourself. You know, this is absolutely awful what is going on in Russia. It's not that simple. Ekaterina Avdeeva, among the public commissioners, she has the first spot, not because of the rather criminal offenses, but because we have a special case. in Moscow. So the moratorium on the bankruptcies is going to be over. Thank you very much. If you allow, I'm going to speak about the crazy cases. You remember, like last year, our team fought for amendments to 210 Federal Act. You know, let them speak about the criminal offenses. 210 Federal Act is the criminal offense of creating the offense community. So the entrepreneurs are still responsible. They are sued even though I personally got acquainted with the materials of the hearing as an attorney, even though, as it is written, that by people, the people agreed to do that. There was no person involved. The entrepreneur was arrested and stayed so within 2 years. And the cases are absolutely crazy. Talking about the investment climate, about the business climate, we shouldn't forget about that. As what happened during the pandemic lockdown, there is a risk of when the salary couldn't be paid, when the contract couldn't be performed, if it is a state contract, tax payments, non-payment of payroll, it can bring a person to those who are accused. So, along with the applications, we saw the special law enforcement problems, applications. As during the pandemic time, the law enforcement agencies didn't act at all. When there were some resolutions achieved, so some of the accounts were frozen, some of the accounts were arrested, and some of them couldn't use their money to invest in their business. I'd like to thank you all the commissioners for that. Unfortunately, the amount of these cases is growing up. Dear friends, we have just 1 minute left. I would like to ask the speakers to say we have a lot of entrepreneurs online, so during the pandemic time, protect yourself. Dmitry, what do you need to pay attention to? Being responsible for the labor interaction and Russian watchdog in this respect, of course, you need to have right documents, you need to have right interaction with your employees, and you need to fine-tune your system of payroll as within the first weeks or even days of the pandemic lockdown. And sometimes it's the entrepreneurs who are to blame too. That's why, because they just have this negligence of these documents. In Moscow, we have a new project responsible for Moscow. We are going to have this project in our receptionist as well. You'll be the responsible for Muscovites. So what advice can you give? I do think that the entrepreneurs understand that he or she cannot conduct business anymore and the company should go bankrupt. Shouldn't be afraid. You should go bankruptcy and to control the situation. If you do not do it on your own, you can get this bankruptcy, and you need to assess your financial situation, the prospects of your business. I would like to add up to several words. Before making a decision to go bankrupt, in Moscow we have 12 offices, 12, soon we are going to have 15 receptionist offices. Apply to them and get consultancy. Sometimes sometimes the lack of knowledge leads to bankruptcy of many companies. So we will try to be very useful, and based on our practice, to save 30 businesses out of 200 of them. Apply to us and we'll try to do our best to help. Today you have voiced the initiative, I totally support it. Do not try to cure yourself. You'll not be able to be a doctor and a professional in the industry on your own if you have problems connected with the criminal code, with the tax code. Apply to the professionals. Try to get the qualified legal assistance, and then it will be difficult to solve any problems if you exaggerate them. We have a special manual what should be done if you have a special check on the authorities. So we will be circulating this manual. We're working together with Moscow Duma. Valery, do not economize when you apply to lawyers. It's a great advice. Of course, what we cannot get rid of, knowledge and information. Try to understand what is happening. Try to learn. There are a lot of opportunities. Sometimes you can economize your money not applying to the lawyers. All these systematic errors which you see, they should be elaborated on, and therefore our country can get better, can get more powerful and prospering. So we invite you to our joint roundtable, which will be dedicated to these issues. Thank you all the participants of our discussion. So you should understand that you are not alone, and you have a lot of institutions to help you. So this motto, protect yourself, is not the mask, and over this period of time we have more than 100 applications in the intercorporate arguments. So do not keep silent. Apply to us, apply to the commissioners in your regions, the Moscow businesses. We have a big team. And protect yourself together with us. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.